So, if you've watched my previous video on all the forms of good players that I believe are present in World of Warships, then now is probably the best time to bring you all the way back down to Earth, and not just land on the surface. We're going to go through the crust, into the mantle, then the outer core, and finally into the inner core. Yep, that far. So with that in mind, let's see some of the things that can turn you from a relatively decent and naive player into one of the worst in the game. I don't say the worst, because that's me. We'll be covering a couple of different topics. Making an appearance will be things like mentality, in-game behaviour, motivation, toxicity level, and ability to reflect on the past. Again, like my video on good players that I'll link somewhere, the last topic might seem a little bit out of order, but all will be revealed in good time. But first, let's get into the actual content. So we've all had our fair share of bad games, and with bad games comes the need to adapt your mentality. There's a couple of different mentalities that I would attribute to players of World of Warships, including myself, and players of any online game in general. So with that in mind, let's go through a few of them very quickly. So first of all, it's the one game nuclear bomb mentality. Now, to describe this mentality as a nuclear bomb might be a bit overdramatic, but for the lack of a better word, I'm going to leave it in. So what is one game nuclear bomb mentality? Let's say you have this type of mentality. You get off work for the weekend or even over the holidays. You decide you want to relax. You power up your computer, grab your favorite snacks, maybe even a drink, and open up World of Warships, ready to spend the rest of the night having fun playing the Yamato, Holland, or some other ship that happens to be your favorite. So you click the battle button, and into game you go. You know the quality of games that you've had in the past, but you think that this time it'll be different. It won't be. What happens is what you feared. The game basically ends in the first 4 minutes and leaves you, the player, in a basically barely controllable rage. However, next game is different, and as the name suggests, whatever self-control you, the player, had in the first game is completely gone, and you pop off like a nuclear bomb on the unlucky soul who made the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth mistake you see. Let's move on to the next mentality, before I get some nuclear bombs dropped in the comment section. If the first mentality was a Joker, you know, a villain that was created by the society that he lived in being so dystopic that he basically had no choice but to go mad, then this following mentality is basically Bane for Batman, someone who just wants to see the world burn. And so this mentality I like to call I hate the world mentality. This basically means going into a game and whether you got caught out by the enemy's radar by accident, or you didn't expect to see that Bismarck creeping up on you and then blasting you with its secondaries, this player will never cease to write a whole thesis in chat about just how bad this player is, and that is usually how it goes for players like this. Although, on odd occasions, if you're on the receiving end of this abuse, then you might even get an extra treat in the form of a chat message outside the game, just reinforcing the fact that they think you are the worst player to ever play the game. A title actually held by me, so if you see that message, just know it isn't true. On to the final one. So the final mentality is, my wife just left me and took the kids, and I lost my job, but I'm really happy anyways mentality. This is a strange one to say the least. The game could be going as wrong as possible, but this player will somehow manage to draw some positives from the flaming wreckage that is the average World of Warships game. They always point out something nice that other players do, and they've never berated someone when they make a very clear mistake, and even when they have an exceptionally bad day playing the game. And I think these players are truly some of the nicest to play the game, and I think we're all a mixture of these different types of mentalities, and hopefully the last one more so than the first two. But with all these mentalities all filling the role of a bad World of Warships player comes mostly from the first two. People with those mentalities are going to be much more susceptible to being tilted and hating playing the game, and as a result you're going to be playing less, and when you play less your level of play goes down, and as your level of play goes down you become worse and worse as a player, and as you can probably guess, this is a cycle that repeats to infinity. Let me know if there's a mentality I missed here, or if they matched up with what you've experienced in your games in the comments below. So probably the most important thing to people when it comes to bad playing is how the players actually perform when it comes to in-game. And again, there's several different types of player, shall we say, that are less than optimal. Yeah, let's go with that. Sorry, but that's just probably the nicest way to say it, or at least that's what I tell myself every time I die within 5 minutes of getting one shot in a Minotaur. First up is the Experienced Player. Sorry, did I say Experienced Player? I meant Inexperienced Player. Wouldn't want to mix that up. And talking about inexperienced players, it's much like talking about Bambi on an ice rink. This player is still finding their feet within the entire ecosystem that is World of Warships. They might not know that the Shimakaze has long-range torpedoes, because all of the times that they've played it, they've used the F3 torpedoes. They basically suffer from information overload. The same kind of feeling you get when you go to a restaurant for the first time and you see that they have a 3-page menu and you have no idea what to order. So they panic, overreact, and run out of the restaurant, leaving everyone inside speechless. Whereas in game, they panic, become overwhelmed, and they run straight into the enemy team. And, well, it goes about as well as expected. Yeah, it doesn't end well. But this feeling does reside over time, and as you get more experienced, it tends to play a lesser and lesser role in your gameplay. So not all is lost. After the inexperienced player comes the just plain bad player. This player started out as a fairly inexperienced player, but as time went on, things never really improved. They kept playing the same way, racking up 3,824 games and just never really improving. I mean, sure, they have some good games here and there, but overall they spend more time complaining about their teammates, and no matter how many times they die first in the game, they never seem to acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, they shouldn't be pushing in like a clown trying to be admitted to Circus du Soleil. Moving on to the next topic before I embarrass myself more than I already have. If you can relate to this, let me know below in the comments what's the biggest mistake you ever made in World of Warships. And I already predict someone is going to say installing the game, so that one's mine. Pick another. So if you watched my previous video on what makes a good player in World of Warships, the link will be somewhere I think, then you'll very clearly see me mention about how good players very clearly focus on past games and how they're able to draw lessons from those games into games that they'll play in the future. You know, things like positioning mistakes, leading a ship mistakes, very fundamental things like that. But when the tables turn and you're not all of a sudden a bad player in game, then this tends to go out the window. But not in the way you'd expect. With good players, they learn from previous games. With bad players, the opposite happens. They actually perform worse when reflected on their previous games. And this is mostly due to tilt, and a sense of ego to a lesser extent. Because people who tend to be bad players in World of Warships tend to look at past mistakes as mistakes of their teammates' failure to perfectly cover them in every single conceivable situation, and not the fault of their own to anticipate said situation and to avoid it as a result. The biggest takeaway is that they put the blame not on themselves, but instead on the shoulders of their teammates. And well, as you can expect, this resolves them of having to face the reality of them realizing that they're not that good a player and they need to improve. I should know. I was this player for a long time before recently beginning to realize in order for me to improve to a point where I'm happy with my play, I need to actually look at how I play and be judgmental with myself. But that pretty much sums it up for another video. If you agree with what I said, leave a comment down below. If you disagree or think there's something I missed about bad players in World of Warships, be sure to let me know in the comment section. I'll try to respond to as many as I can. And as always, I'll see you all in the next one.